Well, hi, Phil. It's a pleasure to meet you after hearing your awesome music, including your most recent album, Fields of Light, which was just released under the project name Anomaly. Fields of Light is your third album. Prior to that, you released Urban Meta Volumes 1 and 2. Can you take me through some of your history growing up and how you were inspired to create music?
Candace, thank you for having me on.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I appreciate your time. That's a good question. Wow. It really wasn't ambient music. It wasn't new age. This is not where I started. It was really hip hop and growing up in the 90s on the East Coast. So it was Tribe Called Quest, EPMD, Eric B. and Rakim, Biz Markie. So that was my influence growing up. And then, so I thought I was going to be a hip hop producer, honestly. So making beats all the time. And then I played in a few bands, played keyboard for a couple of bands, local neighborhood bands, nothing major. But now, ultimately, where I am now, just through experimentation and just 20 years, 25 years later, I'm a different person. So what inspired me to make music isn't really what is calling me now. My wife teaches yoga and meditation, and that was really the catalyst that kind of pushed me in this direction. With thinking, okay, well, maybe I can write some music that would coincide with what you're doing, and we can work together, and kind of join forces. So, which honestly, to this point, hasn't happened. I wrote the music initially to do that, and then we still haven't really collaborated on anything. But I'm in a new creative space, and I'm actually grateful that this is where I am now. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So you've explored a range of styles. You said you come from a hip hop background, electronica, dub, ambient. In the electronic music genre, there's a lot of different sub styles and blending of styles and crossover genres. And is there any common ground or theme that you find reoccurring in these various styles you've explored? Any kind of commonality between them, whether it is hip hop or ambient or electronica?
You're speaking personally for me?
For you or
Yeah.
in general,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, you raise a good point though with all the subgenres. It's impossible to keep up with what's what. So to get to where I am now with the ambient music, it went from hip hop to trip hop, and then it got even more, chill out. And then all of a sudden, I started pulling all the beats out, and then it's just pads and synths and effects, and ambiance, and then doing a lot of automation and sculpting these like experiences. So that's where it is now. So for me, the common theme would be the lush pad background. I think you'll find that in almost any subgenre of electronic music.
Yeah, very true. I know you have a background in yoga and meditation. And can you tell me about how that inspired Anomaly?
Another great question. That actually is a good one. Not so when you think of the word anomaly, I didn't go into wanting that name specifically, but what I wanted to use was Nam in the middle of it, which is NAAM. And so when you look at Nam, if you look that up, that references the inner light and the inner sound that you experience through meditation. So I'm like, okay, which that's the core of who I am, or who I ideally would like to be, more grounded, more spiritual, and making that my, primary focus in life. So I'm like, how can I, it had to coalesce at some point, with, my lifestyle and then my passion, so like if I can use Nam, then that's a reminder to myself, that's the key point, focusing on the inner light and sound. A reminder for me to put the time in and meditate, to work on myself spiritually. So that's where it came from. So I just started fooling around with word combinations, and I'm like, okay, anomaly. That's where anomaly kind of came from initially.
With your music being electronic based, what is some of the equipment used to record your albums, and what's that process like?
It's almost 100% electronic. I was mentioning to some of the other artists on the label, just chatting with them, because they're all pretty accomplished musicians. I don't really play a specific instrument, and I almost feel like I have amnesia when I go in to a session. I don't go in knowing what I'm going to create. I don't know what will a session will end up being. I don't hear the music before I go in. It's all experimental, and it all kind of just flows. And there's a channeling, I think, that takes place. And once you reach a certain point in the creative zone. So for me, but there is a formula. I do. There's a formula I do follow, which helps. It's kind of would help me tap in. But it's electronic based. I use quite a few VST plugins, electronic plugins, and then recently I'm starting to weave in a lot of hardware. So which is newer for me. So it's taking every time you bring a new device in, it's a learning curve. First of all, how do you incorporate it? And how do you even use it? How do you got to master this device? So I got a Dave Smith Prophet that I'm working on, some Electron hardware synthesizers, but other than that, it's that and then sample based. You know, and then recently it's all 432. So if the tough part about that is I've got sample packs from say the past 5-10 years that are not 432. So I've got to go in and find a way to detune them, or somehow get them into that 432, space so I can weave them into the music going forward.
Okay. Your music has also been an integral part of your wife's yoga classes. You said she was a yoga instructor and also workshops that she conducts. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah. And again, initially that was the inspiration. She asked for years, hey, can you make me, well, first of all, it was a personal request. Can you make me a rain CD? I just want 20 minutes of rain so I can sleep. And that was the first experimentation with doing something without, beats or anything like that. And then I worked with another yoga instructor here in Phoenix who was releasing like these positive affirmations on Facebook, on his Facebook page. So he was just creating content. He said, hey, can you give me music for affirmations? At the time, I didn't really have anything that was in this particular lane. So the music I was giving him was a little more, energetic and upbeat. And, but that was also a part of what influenced what I'm creating now. So then with my wife, she would use the music initially in the classes she taught. She's not really teaching now. She's got a yoga business now with instructors, and they do corporate yoga, but she's not necessarily using the music in her classes now, which is kind of ironic because that's how I ended up making this music in the first place. Yeah, yeah.
And what inspired the music on Fields of Light? And what was the intent behind this album?
Good question. I wanted to follow up to the Urban Metta series, but bring a different type of energy. I've been writing new ideas since June, and the way that worked for me was trying to basically get content for Instagram. I do a lot of 1-minute videos with music and like motion graphics on my Instagram page. So it's a good testing ground too for new ideas. I can create something and put it to motion graphic and post it the same day and automatically see if people, how are they feeling this particular piece of music. So Fields of Light came from that. I wrote 30 or 40 new ideas since June, and then it got closer to the end of the year. I think it was September, October, and I'm like, okay, the year's almost up. I do want to get an album out. Let me, reach out to C.A.R.E. I want to do something with Heart Dance, and so I sent her about 12 of those ideas, and we ultimately ended up with 9 on the album. They all start off as 1-minute ideas, but they're little micro versions of what a full soundscape would be, and then we go in and rework it, and bring it out to 8, 9, 10 minutes. And because the nice thing about the ambient music, it's very spacious, so it's not really busy. Fields of Light isn't really busy. It's a lot of sustained.
Out of space in there.
Yeah, because my whole idea with that is to create a space for the listener.
Yeah.
Because it's about their personal experience. It's not about the song per se all the time. And it's not really designed to be entertaining, in a way. Although it's more of a tool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, have you performed live in the past? And is that something you'd like to do as ANAAMALY?
It is. It is. I have not performed as ANAAMALY. I performed again back in teenage years, playing in bands and things like that. But now with the music that I have out, I have not performed with it. I am building some sets now, so it is something I'd like to do going forward. And I am starting to release short snippets on social media of little performances. So because it's kind of challenging to figure out. Okay, there's so many elements that can happen in the studio. It's like, okay, how do we do this particular piece live? So I'm just figuring out what parts need to be, or can be performed, and what parts are going to be like supportive, you know, tracks throughout. So
Now, your debut album, Urban Metta Volume 1, was released on Planet 24 Music. And how did you end up signing on to Heart Dance Records?
well, Planet 27 is my personal independent label. So that was the initial release. I When the album came out in February 2016, it was a really soft release because again it was new, it was experimental. I didn't know what to expect, so wasn't really going after anything in particular as far as how far the album can go, what it would achieve, anything like that. I just put the album out softly. But by the end of that year, Ambient Music Guide put it on their top 50 albums for the year.
Yeah, I remember that.
And that's what really sparked everything from there. Because I'm like, okay, if Mike G from Ambient Music Guide is thinking, okay, this is a pretty legit album. My people need to know about it. I'm thinking, okay, let's put some time and effort into promoting this. And I reached out to RS Promotions, which is C.A.R.E. Finzer. And then that kind of started that whole conversation. And I don't know if you remember, but you were actually the first radio station I reached out to, Journeyscapes.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah.
That was way in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw it,
Yeah.
catching on after that. So that was
Yeah.
really neat to witness,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, you actually wrote the first review on it, and you actually pointed me to Night Tides.
Yes, to Renee Blanche's
Renee
show.
Blanche, yeah.
Yeah, and she loved it as well. So that's great.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much I see it as a community working together.
For sure.
Just like musicians collaborate, those of us that are passionate about the music and getting it out there to the world too. Yeah, I'm always very supportive of those who are digging the same thing I am. So yeah, I do remember that. And what experience would you like for listeners to have through your music?
Well, certainly a personal experience, a spiritual experience, if possible. Some of the feedback I get on Instagram is people like there's a poet in England who stopped writing maybe 15 years ago and found my music through some channel and then sent me a message and said your music really helped release a lot of energy,
Wow,
and now I'm writing poetry again.
that's amazing.
Yeah. But it's that type of story, but it's over and over and it's always something different. People are like really, really connecting with it. So like I said, you start off on a path thinking you're gonna do one thing because that's what you've set your intention on. Like I thought it was gonna be hip hop music, but that wasn't it. That was what was to prepare me for where we are now. And then the feedback I'm getting, I'm like, oh yeah, this is exactly where we are supposed to be creatively, But yeah, just whatever can connect you to the depths inside yourself, the truth, your source, bring you peace of mind. That's what I would hope a listener would get from the music.
Well, thank you for your insight. You've been creating some amazing sounds in the studio, and it was really a pleasure to learn more about you and the whole process. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It's a pleasure.